What's up, everybody? Welcome to Free Lady. I'm Brittany McQuethy, your host, and this is episode 13, y'all. This is so exciting. So if you have watched all of my episodes, I have an episode on here talking about the 5 dating challenges that I listened to from Dr. D. Guess who's here today, guys? Guess who's here? Let's have a happy dance. Dr. D is here today. But let's start off with 3 things that we're grateful for. Obviously, number 1, I'm grateful for love. I think we need to tell each other that we love each other every day and get used to telling a stranger and everyone out there because we need more love in this life. I'm grateful that Dr. D is here today talking about her journey and who she became to be free and what she does now, speaking to so many people that learned so much from her. And I'm just thankful to be alive, like I'm super thankful to be alive. So let's get started. This is Dr. D. Dr. D, what are you thankful for today, honey?
Oh wow. I'm thankful for being in this beautiful place. I'm in Tampa, visiting and having a little vacation. So I woke up to a beautiful sunrise and palm trees. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here, because you just give me a lot. You're super excited about me being here. So now I've gotten excited. And lastly, I'm just excited for my evolution and growth I just keep growing.
Yes, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So, tell us, what do you do and how did you become this person that you are today doing what you do?
Okay. Just basically, how am I Dr. D? How am I? Because Dr. D is it's a combination of things. Dr. D is, this persona on social media. And then Dr. D is the clinician that you see at work or in my office or coaching. So, I graduated a handful of years with my doctorate, but I've been in the mental health field for close to 20 years. And so the Dr. D persona came out of the fact that I just have a very long government name. And I got tired of people kind of messing it up before I got the doctorate. So I was like, how can I condense this? And so I actually had a professor, his name was Dr. Deaton. He actually was a part of my dissertation, and he always called himself Dr. D. And I just thought it sounded catchy. So that's where Dr. D came from.
That's awesome.
It was more out of utility than anything. But just what I do is I'm a mindset coach. I'm a mind surgeon, whatever you want to call it. I just help people get, you may hear people say this, but I do it with a passion. I help people to get clarity in their life. And this is on so many different levels because everyone has this programming that we've all been tapped into here on this planet. And it creates this dissonance, like something is off. And so I help people figure out what that thing is that's off so they can have that quality of life that they want.
That's beautiful. And when did you realize that like you had a gift or, did you go through something where like, okay, I needed to help who I was because I want to help other people. I want to bring out the light in everybody. Like, when did you know that in your life?
I've had this gift all my life. I think the first time I became aware of it was I was in middle school, and my mother says to me, "Who do you think you are, dear Abby?" Because I would be on the phone all day, friends, people calling me, and like helping them get clarity. I didn't have that word back then, but
Mhm.
and I said to myself that I wanted to be a psychologist. So I've just always had this gift of just being able to listen and see through what people are saying and listen to more of what they're trying to communicate, as long as I can remember.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I'm very drawn to people that have gifts like yourself. I've always been like that. I definitely know that what I do with hair, because I've been a hairdresser for 19 years and I love making people feel amazing and confident and what they see in the mirror. But I also love when they get to sit in my chair and we have these deep conversations. I'm a very deep, emotional human being, right? Very intuitive. And so when I start like having all these conversations, I was like, well, let's start this YouTube channel. I did this 1 week after Lions Den Live. I still don't know what I'm totally doing. Perfect. But I don't care. The message is what this is all about. And your message, that you have been, just saying like, and I also just want to talk about like, I want to congratulate you on your sobriety. And like, it's so huge. I just had an episode with Scott and Ann Travis, talking about having a family member with, an addiction. I do have a family member that's still dealing with an addiction with alcohol. And it's really, really hard, but it's so beautiful when people make that choice. And I think that's so beautiful that you did that for yourself, because it just adds value of how you can help even more with people. So what is the main thing that you are passionate about, like helping others? Is it just like really finding out who they are, or is it helping them with the relationship with themselves and to have that relationship that they're looking for with other people?
Well, so your question is somewhat loaded, and
I know. That's
I yeah, okay. I'm in the habit of letting people know when they ask loaded questions, and so um, my gift is not compartmentalized when I deal with people, because people are not compartmentalized. We're whole individuals comprised in multiple systems. That's our, the relationship with ourselves, our intimate relationships, our immediate family relationships, our work relationships, business relationships. So my niche isn't like, hey, I could just help you with dating, or I could just help you with this. And I've tried that. I've tried that over time, because everyone says just find this one thing, but I'm uniquely different. That one thing doesn't work for me, just like one thing doesn't work for the clients that I'm dealing with, because they can come in and you can say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. And we start talking about it, and you're saying that your big trouble is starting the podcast. But then after we talk, it could relate to your self-confidence, or it could relate to time management. How do you manage the time, and being able to see your time in more as value as opposed to just quantity. So it's not one thing, in answer to your question.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I always ask very loaded questions.
Well, that's your job as the host.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so like tell us about like, how you grew up, and just like fighting to be giving your gift to the best of the ability that you have today.
Yeah. So my first book that I published, and I published it after joining, you were talking about the Lions Den and stuff, about a year after being in the Lions Den. It's called From the Voice of a Fractured Mind, Speak Loud. And I talked about, it's a self-help book / my memoirs. And I kind of just talked about that upbringing, being brought up in a Christian family, being brought up in a judgmental family. I don't use that word then, but as I've grown over time and just started looking at more of a culture that's very tribal. So I was using the word judgmental, but it's more tribal. And so with the tribe, or the collective amount of people in that group and in your family, they determine like the identity of the whole group. Well, I kind of bucked that system. I consider myself like the black sheep, because I just didn't follow rules. I just questioned everything. And while I don't regret my family experiences, I think they shaped and mold me. And like I said, we're whole individuals. It was very frustrating for me that me being so inquisitive and me just not complying in a lot of ways, that I often found myself in a lot of trouble. uh, so that was very significant. And the other significant part was, and I wrote multiple books, just kind of unloading that, was my experience with sexual trauma. So sexual trauma, suicidal, all these other things. And so coming from, believe it or not, it sounds like this very what's the word I'm looking for? Sad story. My
Hmm.
story is very common. Like I see
Right.
clients all the time but at the time when I was experiencing these things, just like many of my clients, you feel like you're on a planet by yourself.
Right.
So that basically led to a life full of depression, ultimately substance use, particularly alcohol, and just very low self-worth.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you do like, even when with my first episode when I started interviewing people, when I interviewed Zach, like his childhood story was like jaw dropping, compared to like mine. But what I always talk about is that it is all similar because we feel the same. We feel the same. We get into this darkness. We feel like we're on the island on our own. We feel like we're black sheep. I definitely was a black sheep in my family, because I wanted to see the world and know it was different. I wanted to touch it and taste it and just like feel this energy that I always felt as a little girl. And but when you start talking to people, like there's so many, all these stories, but in the end we all connect on the same way and the same feeling. And it's the point in our lives where we wake up and we choose to break the chains of our childhood, or what we're brought up into believing. And I find that like that is that's the most beautiful first step in anybody's life, when we want to break those chains of like being different and being comfortable and being vulnerable talking about our story, because we relate to everybody. Our stories are just written a little differently. But the more that we share our vulnerability and where we came from the ashes to a beautiful light, I feel like people can relate to all of us and be like, well, we can do that too. I can be a light too. And so, um, I've definitely have experienced just the little things that you have said. And I love that she has, so you guys out there in the audience, she has a lot of books that she's written. And I'm a huge fan of self-help books, y'all. I mean, they have helped me so much. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And so I will list her books, of course, in the topic bubble when this is produced, so you can check it out. And so what made you did you write your books before you started your practice, or was it a combination? And why did you want to start writing books?
I actually started, you talked about Scott and Ann Travis. Like Scott is beautiful. I love them. They're the
Oh
most
my God, me too.
beautiful. Um, he's this artist with his painting, and I don't want to use the wrong words to describe what he does. It's just very beautiful.
It
But what
is.
he does with his painting, I do with words. I do. I make words into art, and I've done that since my childhood. In that, that's all I really had was the ability to write and create these, it wasn't stories, but just a way to express. It's like these journals, if you will. I have tons
Right.
of journals of what my experience was and what have you. So I had my first book in me for probably 20 years. But it was after I published my dissertation as far as my doctorate. And I was like, oh, wow, that was pretty easy. I could do it again. So, and and then, being a part of the Den at the time, one of the editors in there was helping people get their books done. And so that's how that came to pass.
That's amazing. And what brought you, because a lot of people I've been talking to, we all are part of the Lion's Den. And for you guys out there, I do talk about it a lot. It is life changing. Like, what brought you to the Den?
Yeah, it is. It's a strange set of events, but I believe that for me anyway, it was just like me scrolling through social media, probably like everyone else. And, you know, you probably see old pictures if you were able to look at us in the Facebook group, like different things that I would post, like how is this chocolate woman in this group? And and I'll always tell people when I first would go, I'm like, I let everybody come up to me because I'm easier for them to find. That I'm looking and I'm scrolling. I would have never probably clicked on this guy's video, but I don't know what it was. I was reading something and I clicked on it and he's talking about flowers. He's talking about how he bought this, everyone calls it the flower video, how he went into, I think he was at a BJ's, one of those wholesale stores, and he was buying flowers for his lady at the time and his daughter. So he had two bouquets of flowers. And essentially the guy says to him, you must be in trouble. And from there, he was just kind of just talking about like, what is the state of the world that a man has to be in trouble to buy flowers. And I was like, wait a minute, like this, because that's the way that I think, right? So I'm like, who is this guy with this beard that thinks like that? And so I clicked on it, and then he has this little video of like, join my group. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to know the group where guys think like this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea that it was like a life-changing group, but I'm glad that I saw it.
Yeah, same here, same here. I mean, it was, I got into the den because I had a girlfriend reach out and she's like, read this post. And it was when him and Sax got married. And it was when he was talking about how she wanted to jump in the pool. And he was like, what? You know, but he did it for her. And I joined the den too, because I was like, this is a man who believes in who he is, but he also knows that, you know, his loyalty to his wife, you know, will come first and foremost, and how he treats Saxony to this day. It's so beautiful. And, you know, when they just recently had a podcast on like masculinity and how like masculinity is completely going away in this world. And I find that in the den, there's a lot of masculinity going on in there. And I'm like, yes, I want to be around that. But I feel like, you know, I'm still single, you know, I've never been married. I'll be 40 in November. And I'm so thankful for this life. I'm so thankful for this journey. But I will tell you, and, you know, as I'm sure you hear this all the time, it's like the masculinity in men is what is keeping us single, because it is so hard to find these men. But it's also a beautiful thing to be a part of this coaching group, for us to be in our power and to grow and to level up and to be in that place where we start hanging out around all these people that, you know, give us life and power for ourselves. But
I don't think the masculinity per se is the problem. I think it's a part of the problem.
yeah,
I think it's men being comfortable, being vulnerable in their masculinity. That is the challenge. You know, you have some that are just like this great, oh, I'm just so masculine, hardcore buff, whatever, that
sure.
their outward presentation is that. But people understand that every human being is made up of both masculine and feminine energy. And I think what
Right.
Sean has done a good job of is really expressing and vocalizing both aspects. Like he's diehard, like, yeah, you know, I'm a man's man, but at the same time, you know, I need nurturing and things like that too. So
Yeah.
many, the dating game has just been turned upside down because
Right.
it's not a balance of that energy, not just from men but women too. You know, that's where I struggled for years, that I always was in my masculine energy,
Right.
and I was unaware of it because it worked for me. And then I'm looking at the dudes like, what's your deal, you know? Like, I need you to step up, and never feeling that I could let my guard down, if you will, because I'm like, you're not being a man right now, you
Right.
know. But also recognizing that it wasn't just him, it was
Right.
also me not recognizing that maybe there were opportunities for him to be a man, but I was playing the man role. So
Yeah.
to bumping heads, if you will. So so I just want to point that out, that I don't think it's just the masculinity, it's the people being able to be vulnerable when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree with that. And I definitely learned when you were talking about, masculine and feminine energy, even in like the 5 dating challenges, I was like, well, shit, man, am very masculine too, because I've always been so independent. I've lived on my own since I was 17. I've always worked, and I've always worked in the public, and I've always had to survive. And because of my childhood not really knowing what love is,
Mhm.
I always was attracted to the men out there that were super depressed, and I wanted to fix them, because I was still fixing myself, but I always felt like I was standing my ground. I never let my walls down, even though I completely let them down at the same time. And because I felt so bad, but I always was like being the masculine one in these relationship. I was never being me and being myself more, which you talked about. That's what feminine energy is, being, and just being more of it. I mean, that was like such a beautiful thing that you talked about with women is, and with our society today, women really have to like, you've noticed that we are more stronger, we are more intense, and standing up for, that we're strong, and we're powerful, we can do
To
anything.
our own
We are,
detriment.
huh?
And to our own detriment, though, it's kind of been, and I don't want to go too far off tangent, but the war some years ago, World War II, I believe it was, that it forced us to be not be breadwinners while men were off at war, right? And so by default, we kind of still just stayed in that role
Mm.
before once they came back home. Okay. Now that was great. That was a necessity at that particular time, but many women have not adjusted to that. Like we've almost worn this as a crown, like I'm independent, I can do all these things by myself.
Yeah.
But the question is, do you really want to do it by yourself? Right. The question, you
Yeah.
know, and that was the deep question that I had to really answer for myself, because I was raised in a family where the women dominated everything and the men were fine with it.
Right.
But then it's like, you're tired. Like, were you meant to carry this much load, or is a strong man someone that can help and support that, and you be his backbone? Not that you're less than, but you don't have to carry that load because he was physically designed to
Yes.
carry that kind of load. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100% that makes sense. 100% that makes sense. I mean, that's kind of how I lived my whole life too, even my grandma, who pretty much, raised me, like she was a badass strong female, and her whole life when I was alive, she didn't really go on dates. She was married, and then she got divorced, and then she was always single, and she was like, I don't need a man. She was always telling me like, just have a baby, Brittany, you don't need a man. And so you're kind of like, what, and it made me even stronger. But that is such a beautiful question that you do have to ask yourself, is like, I never wanted to do it by myself. Like I wanted a family. I'm ready to be like a foundation for a man, because yes, men are designed to be, the stronger person, and it's a ebb and flow kind of thing. And so like, what would you suggest to like our audience, is when you are going on a date, or just having a friendship, or what would you suggest to them, like what are you really looking for when you're finding out where your masculinity and femininity lies within that relationship?
So again, loaded question. Because it doesn't lie, it's a flow, right? It's a flow. And Make Him Feel Fascinate and Fancy You, my book for women, talking about balance in that energy, right, is, first of all, you're not looking for anything per se until you find what is within.
Mm.
Right. So before I go, that's been one of the problems in the dating for women. We've been going out just looking for stuff. It's like, hey babe, I want something to eat. What do you want? I don't know. We just riding around. right? Until we figure it out. And then that never goes well. If you ever think about a date where a man's
Oh
like,
no.
right? Well, that's what women are doing in dating. That's what I did in dating. It's like I'm just showing up and I'm like at the date, is it him? Is it him? Is this
Oh
him?
yeah.
Is this him? Right. And that's out of desperation. Like you're going to date starving. Right. But if I look within and I'm full because I'm complete by myself. All right. That's the part that we got. Like, I don't need a man. No, I don't need a man, but I want one.
Yes.
So now I show up to dinner that I can buy my own freaking meal. I can buy my own house. I can do all these things, but I don't want to do it by myself.
Right.
Right. So if I don't want to do it by myself now, instead of going in with my masculine hat on, like I already got my wallet, like, oh my God, whatever. As soon as the lady comes, I pull it out just so I can show, like, I don't need you to buy me this meal. No, I sit there. I don't open my door. I stand there and wait. Even if you're the kind of brother that your mother didn't teach you to open, I'm gonna stand there and then you ask me a stupid question like, "What are you waiting? I'm waiting for you to open the door, love." And right. And so I move and flow into my feminine energy, right? I wait for him to ask me, what would you like to eat? Rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to order. So it's really not that I'm still getting my needs met, but I'm getting them met through what I want. You see? So when it's the same thing in conversation, like dating, I'm in a relationship now, but dating was so fun once I developed this mindset. Before that, it was anxiety provoking because it's like, is this him? Am I saying the right thing? Don't be too masculine. Don't. No, now it's just flow. It's like, yeah, babe, even if it's like one date and it doesn't work out, I enjoy it because I'm in my feminine energy waiting to receive.
Yeah. That is like so beautiful. And that's what I never knew that until I started listening to you. I never knew that I was doing that. I never made a list. You talked about making a list because I'm thinking all the time. My mind never shuts up, right? And so I know what I want mentally, but like it's so different when you write it down because you're like, here it is to God, here it is to the energetic world. You see it. And the minute I wrote everything down, because I was like, yeah, girl, I'm ready. I'm going to write all this down. It was like 5 pages.
Right.
You
But
know what
why
I mean?
wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do that? We do that with, like, for you say you do hair, right?
Yeah.
Your business, whatever. We write goals for that. We write out goals, our itinerary for our trip, the GPS, we do all that. Why wouldn't we do that for someone that we say we want to spend our life with?
Right. Like I've never thought about it that way. And I don't think, a lot of women think that way because they do. Like I would always be like, go on a date, and I'd be like, is this it? Is this it? And I'd be so concentrated on that instead of like being myself, letting the other person be themselves, not paying attention to the highlight reel. That was your term, which I love. Um, and now that I've written my list down, even to like what they look like, what they smell like, I know that that's what I'm looking for now, and I don't know if I'm going to be like too picky if I go on a date and like, well, that's not what I think that's not what I
Why
wrote
shouldn't
down.
you be picky? Why shouldn't you
You know
be
what I
picky?
mean?
Because you know what you want.
Right.
Like if they just bring me a steak, you
Yeah.
bring me a steak and I don't like it, I wasn't specific enough. So why not be picky? That's where our worth comes in at. No, I'm not too picky. I know what I want. And it actually makes it easier to discern when what I don't want is in front of me.
Absolutely, because it's, once I wrote that list down, I was like, well, that's what I'm looking for. And so I know when I see him or when he sees me, and it'll just be like and then, but you still have to go in there and have that conversation of vulnerability and speaking your truth. And, guys have a problem doing that. And so do women, women go on dates thinking, oh, I got to act this way because they'll like that, and you're already getting in trouble because you're not being yourself. And then, you act this way, and then couple weeks, couple months later, they're like, that's not you. Or you're like, well, that's not you either, So you waste your time if you're not going to be honest with yourself and be vulnerable and say what you want, say what's on your mind, you know? So when you're creating a vision board, you talked about creating a vision board. Like that's something I haven't done yet because I don't really writing things down, it makes more sense to me. Like a vision board, talk about having a vision board for yourself with the relationship that you want to have.
Well, I do vision boards for my vision board for life in general. So the
Yeah.
relationship is there, just like the relationship with my family and things like that. But you think of it like a collage, your teacher in school would tell you to make this collage of something, right? What you
Yeah.
thought Italy would look like or whatever. And so it helps you when you're talking about calling out into the universe, right? While you're picking these pictures, you're making some type of association within your mind, which your mind is connected to the universe in order to be
Right.
able to do that. While the words are there, um, people always talk about visualization, right? The words don't necessarily help us visualize per se as much as it helps us to make what we're visualizing have a concrete form.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get up in the morning, except when I'm traveling, there's a huge vision board that I look at. And now I have it in my head right now. I don't need to see it per se because I can see it in my head, but I can get up and just like, oh, I'm just going to go through the motions today. But then there's this big vision board. It's like, no, you're not going to go through the motions. What you're going to do is work toward this vision.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, like, yeah, because I used to do collages all the time, and again, I'm pretty sure that's what it was all about, but I don't know why my brain was like stuck on like, what do I do? But I think it's just kind of like we'll stop overthinking it, Brittany. Like
Right.
I overthink a lot of things. I'm learning how overthinking is so damaging when it's going to be valuable to your life. That was the first episode that I listened to with Sean. He was like, don't overthink anything if it's going to add value to your life. I was talking to Nick Hoff last night about this, and if you start overthinking, you're never going to do anything, and so like you just got to do it. And so I will do that. I will do that for sure. And so I also, like wanted to ask you, you talk about like being an oracle, and I was like, oh yes, I definitely believe in those kinds of energies. And like, what does that mean to you? And when did you find out that you had that type of energy naturally?
Um, I'm kind of put on the spot a little bit, so I'm trying to condense this. Basically, we all have these gifts. We
Mhm.
all we all have these extrasensory gifts. I'm no one special in that regard. What I'm special at is the fact that I choose to tap into that energy.
Mhm.
And so that is what makes me good at everything that I do, is to be able to tap into these sensory, these six senses, 12 senses, whatever we want to call them, these intuitions or what have you. And it was funny because, like I said, I grew up in a religious family and things like that. And so I would have visions and different things. And, you know, to the point where I believe many of them were nightmares because some things would come to me.
Right.
So my family believed they were nightmares and I would be prayed over and all these things. Um, but then as I got a little bit older, young adulthood, a family member or someone would come to my mind and I might say to my mom, hey, I had a dream about so and so and so. And my mother would say, well, what was the dream? I said, well, just make sure you tell this person, make sure you check on this person or whatever. And,
Yeah.
or I would touch someone and, a person, I would say, I could think of a lady right now in the store. She was saying she was sick or something. She had a little cold and we would leave and I touched her arm and I said, I hope you feel better. She said, I feel better already. And I said, okay. She was like, no, literally, when you just touched me, I felt better. And so I started like making these connections of feedback. I always use my environment of the feedback that people were giving me. People were telling me that I had a gift, but I didn't realize it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so ultimately, what ended up happening is once I stepped away from organized religion in 2016, because I used to be minister and all these other good things, I started looking at God outside of a box and just really expanding my
Ooh.
spiritual gifts. And I realized that uh, all the things that I questioned when I was a kid was right there at my disposal. So from then, I realized that the reason why I'm so good at psychology is because I'm not using the books that they give me in school. I just need that to practice.
Yeah.
I'm using the gifts that are in me.
Wow. That is so beautiful. I mean, I was brought up super Christian too. And I was like shamed in the Christian church from my mom. And I tried to go back and no one talked to me. That's in my first episode. And, I've always been like really spiritual because I've always felt like God was, you do look at him outside of the box. I've never heard of heard it like that before. And I think that's super beautiful. Now, because of the Lions Den, I knew I really had to like put my knee down to God. I had to say his name because I couldn't say his name for a long time because I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm abusing it like my mom. You know what I mean? I didn't want people to judge me for that because so many people know that. And so I definitely, look at like, the trees and the flowers and the water and just everything around you has energy. Everything has energy in it. And that's God, that's him being outside of the box, showing you all these gifts that he presents to you. Um, because I've always had like my mom's intuitive, my grandma's intuitive, I'm super intuitive. And when I got to a point in my life where I saw a therapist that I finally connected with is because she was a medium and she had connectivity to that realm and that world, because I have dreams about people and they come true and I'm like, oh shoot, but I always take it and just reach out to that person, but I don't know how to like utilize it to like the full advantage. But I feel like, or don't you feel like everybody actually has that in them as long as they accept it and, take advantage of tapping into that energy?
Um, Again, loaded question. You said everyone have it and they accept it, and here's how it's loaded, because you said you were brought up in a Christian or religious background, and
Yeah.
that's the Christian dogma that we have to accept something, if you
Right.
will. But even if we take it from Christian standpoint, that's why I'm glad I had my Christian experience, because I know the Bible very well. It says that God is greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. So if God is not in a box and he's in us, then what answer does that leave you with?
Right. Right. You're right. You're totally right. I mean, you were brought up knowing that we are his children, and we definitely are, for sure. So that's really cool. I mean, I definitely feel like, if you have that energy, you get to utilize it in your career and your job to help people. It gives you more value. It gives you more value to step into that light to help people even more. Um, so I guess my next question is that, I was thinking about, so you have like been married before, correct? And yeah. And so when you were married before, what was that like, and what made you realize that like, well, this wasn't working for me and it's okay to leave and grow?
Oh, good question. Not loaded. um, I was married the first time 14 years and the second time 7.
Uh-huh.
I knew at about 2 years into it that I needed to leave my first marriage. However, like I said, I was in judgmental Christian background, and all these things is what would people think with me having 3 kids and no husband? How would my kids grow up if their dad isn't there? All the dogma, all the BS.
Right.
Am I a good Christian woman if I leave my husband? And me debating with the scriptures, a sanctified woman sanctifies her husband,
Yeah.
and you can only leave your husband if there's adultery, and all of this mess.
Right.
And so for 14 years, I stayed imprisoned, not by him, by me, and me struggling with allowing other people and other systems to determine what was best for my quality of life. So to the point that was it maybe 2 or 3 years into it is when I had my first lethal attempt at suicide. I was very depressed, very, very depressed. And it went on for another, 11, 12 years. So when I got married the second time, I said to myself that regardless, I would never stay in a situation that I'm not happy.
Right.
And so, did take a little bit of time for me to be willing to let go, but not to the point where I was in the previous marriage. And so, when I talk to clients all the time, people are struggling in relationships. This is where I'm good at, is like to really get down to like, look, are you really unhappy in your marriage? Or are you just not willing to let go that some shit in your marriage happened that you didn't like, and the two of you need to work through it? Put on your big girl pants, your big boy pants, and let's develop some strategies to improve the relationship if you really want to be in your marriage. Or are you just done and this is not working for you, and you need to put on the big girl pants or big boy pants and say that this doesn't work for me? I can speak to both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's probably what a lot of people struggle with the most, is like saying what they want. Yeah, I mean, when you're brought up Christian, you're like, well, divorce is bad. I mean, my mom told me everything was a sin. Everything was a sin, so I was like that all the way until I was a freshman in high school. And so I fully remember I was dating, the love of my life at the time, and his best friend's mom died, and she was Jewish. And my mom said that she was going to hell because she was Jewish. And I was just like, that is not right. That's not right. And so I started breaking those chains of like, I do believe, and I'm actually really grateful that I was brought up as a Christian because of the, the values and that. But it was also very like in a box where it couldn't be released. And I feel like you don't have to grow up Christian to be in a box. I feel like a lot of people are brought up in a box where they don't know how to speak their truth in their relationships. So what would you say to, our audience is like, how to find that power within yourself to speak your truth?
Well, one is to let go of anybody else's dogma. Like we are in this matrix. There are systems constantly being downloaded to us.
Right.
And I can speak from almost any point of reference. If you want to be Christian, that's fine. But Christianity is based on Christ. And Christ went against the grain on everything. He was talking to the woman at the well. You're not supposed to be talking to no woman that's not his woman and call her out on her stuff, that she was sleeping, that she was living with a man that she wasn't even married. He was like, where's your husband? And she said, oh, I'm not married. She said, you're right. And the man that you're staying with now is not even your husband. He did everything against the grain. But that's not what's taught in churches. That's not what's taught in synagogues and homes. It's taught this condemnation, although the Bible says there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. So how do you break free from these things is, what is your truth? What is your truth? The truth is, I love Jesus very much because he set a big example, but my truth also is that I'm not a Christian.
Right. Right. I love that. I love that. And what do you also like? Don't you, I feel that, one has to really dive deep into themselves and love themselves to the full potential to become, who they need to become to be in that relationship. What are steps, like, what are steps that you can share with the audience of like, what do I got to do to love myself more?
What do I have to, loaded question. What do I have to do to love myself more? Let's reverse engineer that. I don't have anybody coming to see me asking me, how do I hate myself? Yet I have clients that come in to see me because they hate themselves.
Yeah.
How did you come to that conclusion? Right? What steps did you take to get to the point where you say, I hate myself?
Right.
That's your answer. Do the opposite to love yourself, right? If you spend all your time talking negative about yourself, you just spend all your time just putting down everything that you've ever done, oh, woe is me, blah, 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 whatever. You did all that and you did it well to the point that you sought out a therapist or a coach to help you undo it. For me, only tell you what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Then you can do the same thing over here. You got up morning, noon, and night. Hate myself, hate myself. Well, get up every day and love on yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that's today feels like crap, but I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to eat a good meal. And that's the best I can do for me today. But that's me loving on myself. Great.
Yeah.
That's I'm not gonna date the sorry ass guy that I know is no good for me. I'm just gonna wait until a suitable person asks me out on a date, right? It's very simple, but like you said, we complicate things. It's like, I need the secret formula. No, all you need to do is
Right.
value you.
I think that is a great advice. I never thought about it as just reverse, engineering what you're telling yourself. I mean, I had to take a lot of years to love who I am. And the last, since I was 28, I've been on that journey. I'm going to love myself to the end of time because I want to be powerful in who I am, to have, whatever is on alongside with me, with my business, with my future husband, with this YouTube channel. I got here because of that, and so I think that's very simple. I think it's very, very simple to look at your life like that, when it comes to like, someone putting sticky notes on your mirror, to read those every day. Like, what do you have to do to reverse what your thought? Because I always believe that, when people say like, oh my gosh, that was so dumb, I'm so stupid, your brain doesn't know the difference when you're just saying that as a joke or if it's real. So
Right.
you have to constantly be like, yes, I'm powerful. Give yourself a high five in the mirror. And this is who I am, because there's no one else out there that is like you or is like me. And that's such a beautiful thing to have. But I struggle with seeing the sadness in our country and our world, especially with mental health. I feel for these people so much, I want to help them so much. And I feel like, our country is just giving handouts for it to be okay. That, we don't have people to go to anymore. We don't have mental health clinics that are amazing. And I feel like it's very hard for people to find a therapist that they connect with because it costs so much money. They have to spend $100 to $300 talking to someone. They don't connect, and they do it again
So
and
let
again
me
and
speak to
again.
that. So 1 and 3 cost so much money, right? Because I've had people say that, but we'll spend $300 on a bag,
Yeah,
$300 on a trip, but
like,
not the mind
right.
in order to be able to enjoy the trip and enjoy the experience. If, or not just a psychologist, a coach, like, it's to get you from point A to point B quicker. And if you know how to do it, then you wouldn't need 20 $300 bags
Yeah.
to make you feel happy. And so the real thing is one other key with what you were talking about to the mental health is to accept where you are. You can totally see some people that hate themselves and then they have to still go through life, and then that just really sucks. Then there's people that love themselves and they still go through life and they have periods that suck, right? And so over here, I love myself, but I still acknowledge to myself, I still accept that there's times when I do feel depressed. There's times when life does feel like it sucks a little bit because things aren't going my way, but I
Right.
still love myself. I still have a great quality of life, and it's acknowledging those things. Well, the people that come see me is the ones that says, hey, I value my time right now, that it's very short and I can't figure out this mental health thing. And like you said earlier, it's so simple, but everyone's looking for the complicated answer. They're like, but Dr. D, how?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like when I say like it's expensive, like it's definitely worth paying the right one. I feel like people give up when they don't find the right person. Like I feel like that part is really hard. So they're spending money
Mm.
on all these consultations and they're like, well, now I've spent like $1,000 and I still don't, I haven't found the right person that works for me. I
Let me speak to that.
with insurances, like, and all that stuff. Like, well, I don't take your insurance. I feel like, I luckily got to find a person that really helped and changed my life. But
Right.
like for those out there that, deal with like not finding it or it's not under their health care, like what do they do? How do they
Yeah,
find
no,
that
that
person
now
for them?
that is a legit concern. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, the was I mean, I don't know how to be politically correct. I just don't.
That's
Many therapists out here suck. I was saying this before I was even licensed.
I agree.
Um, they, I even was when I was doing my training, I was under one lady until I moved on to someone else who was licensed, and I could not believe how unethical and incompetent this lady was. I'm like, they literally give it's like a driver's license. They give it to anyone,
Yeah.
and so my heart goes out to people who struggle in that area because this is a specialty. Psychology is a specialty. A
Yeah.
therapist, a licensed clinical social worker, licensed mental health therapist, um, licensed professional counselor. All these are specialists. Psychiatrists, they are specialists. So it's always like going to a heart doctor. It's going to take some months to get in, and then you finally get in. And like you said, this person is like, "What? Are you kidding me? Like this is what I waited for."
Yeah.
So here are some suggestions. First and foremost, to understand you have a right to choose your provider, just like anything else. And even when people come to see me, I tell people what my approach is, and I say out the gate, I let you know my approach because I might not be a good fit for you. And if I'm not, you tell me that, and I'm going to do my best to try to connect you with someone who is, because I'm not hard up for a client, right? But other people will see the client and they just want to see him week after week. I tell you, you're not gonna come see me for 2 years about the same issue. Dr. D just don't work like that.
That's awesome.
So some ways, I mean, come on now, you've been thinking about this situation for years. You want to sit and talk to me about it for 2 years? No, I get bored too easy. We're gonna fix this problem sooner than later. But one, you can start with your primary care doctor. That's somebody that you're very familiar with, and ask your primary care doctor, hey, who do you know that's a therapist? That's one way. Ask your family and friends, somebody that you may feel comfortable with, or a coworker. See if at your job they have an EAP program. That's an employee assistance program that your job may cover some sessions for you. So you're kind of not footing the bill for it while you're searching for a therapist. Then also the big place where all of us go is Psychology Today. Probably every therapist or mental health professional is there. And the way while you're searching for the person, look at what they're writing. Like if you're reading my thing and it's like, yeah, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and then I tell you that I specialize in 500 things, you probably want to go right over that profile because everyone doesn't specialize in 500 things
Right.
unless you have someone like me. I've been in the field for close to 20 years. I may have more things on there than someone who's been in it 4 or 5 years. And
Right.
then you send, look at, pick three of them and just send them messages. They sometimes people have free consultation. I personally don't do free consultations because I
Right.
know a lot, I've learned over the years that free consultation means someone wants to waste my time. And so if you put your money up front, then I know that your time is just as valuable as mine. But there are other therapists that will give you a free 15-minute consultation or what have you. And you could do it that way, or you could just email. Like right now, I am looking for a counselor. I have not had luck. It's like I said, I'm dating, and we're going to have dating counseling. I think it's healthy,
Oh,
but I'm very specific about what I want. And so I've reached out on Psychology Today and say, I'm looking for someone with these skills. And I've been turned down because they're like, we don't think we can meet those needs. Fine with me. So that's another way you can communicate by email. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. Is this what you work with?
Psychology Today. I've never even heard of that. So that I'm glad that you're speaking on this thing because like, I have clients in my chair all the time who like are desperately trying to find the right person for them. And I'm like, I know it's so hard. It's so hard, but also, pray about it too. Let God lead you in that way as well spiritually. But I'm really glad that you shared that because I think that's really important and it's really great information for those who are wanting to get help.
So for those that don't pray, let them use I suggest them using their intuition. If you're
Yeah.
reading the profile or you're calling the person and
Yeah.
something's bad that doesn't feel right,
Right.
let it go. Or if you have something that says, hey, call this person, listen to that. It might not even be the person that you end up working with. It could be leading you to someone else. So we have to remember I said we all have these gifts to
Yeah.
really tune into, because a lot of times people went to see somebody and they already knew from the phone calls, like, I'm not really feeling this person.
Right.
Why waste an hour of your time or your money?
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I always talk about, even if you don't believe in God, like, please, like, believe in something bigger than you and listen to your gut. It will always tell you. It will
Mhm.
always tell you. Um, so I don't know how much time we have. Look on what time, how much time we have, but because I know you're on vacation, I'm so appreciative. Like, you're taking
Yes,
the time.
yes,
That's so
yes.
beautiful. So in the bigger picture, what is your end goal with how you really want to help people? Now, you talked about that you want to start a podcast. Like, what does that mean to you?
So everything that I've done is so I can help one person. And I came to that conclusion when I was writing my first book. The editor I was working with at the time, I was like, like I felt like I was about to have a mental breakdown because I was just crying. I'm like, oh my God, is this supposed to be happening? Like, I've told this story 100 times. And she was like, yeah, everyone goes through this because they're putting it on paper. And then she was like, just think about why you're writing the book. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, do I want to sell billions of copies or what? I'm like, no, I want to just help one person. Like, if I had someone that shared their story when I was going through these things, just one person, I would have been in a different state of mind, I think. I'm glad for my experience, but I just think, like, if one person had said, hey, I know what you're going through, or hey, here's some help, or here's a whatever, I think, my story could have been a little bit different. So when I write my books, when I do this podcast, when I'm speaking, everything is one person.
Yeah.
And I know now that through all these different avenues that I'm trying to learn and figure out too, that one person gets bigger exponentially. Like right now, agreeing to be on your podcast, like I'm helping you with your podcast, but in essence, I'm helping the one in your audience,
Yeah.
So that's my goal.
Yes, I feel that way too. I had my family ask me why I'm doing this. I've had clients, why am I doing this? And the reoccurring answer is that one person out there that's watching this, I really hope to save, their lives, or, that they see you and they're like, oh, girl, I'm gonna reach out to her. She's my person. Like, that's what it's all about, is changing one person's life at a time. And I think that's so beautiful. The gift of loving another and the gift of wanting to help people is so beautiful to me. And that's, what I strive for too. So when do you think your podcast is gonna be out?
Uh, Loaded question. No, I've been putting it off. And me going on vacation has allowed me to say, I just have to push the go button. My biggest barrier is like the microphones and all this other stuff.
Oh, girl.
I'm like, do I wear the headphones? Here's me overthinking. Do I wear the headphones? Do I get the thing? And I just didn't know. That's a kind of little joke. It was really on what I was going to talk about. I had a coaching group that I had for years, and I outgrew it.
Yeah.
I finally just ended that like about 2 months ago. And so my intent there was good, but I was like, I want to do another group. But I was like, what do I want to do a group on? And
Yeah.
so that's what happened, like kind of with the podcast. It was like, oh, what do I talk about? Do I talk about everything under the sun? And one of my friends who's also a coach, he was like, D, you already have a podcast. You're all over Instagram and all these other things. And I was like, yeah, but I want a podcast. So I realized that I want to do it. I want to do it on assertive living. I'm still debating with the name, but I want to do it with assertive living. And over the last week, I thought about calling it Assertive Living with Dr. D featuring Asha. I wanted to present it to my daughter, my oldest daughter, because she
Oh,
started some groups with ladies and encouraging them. And I thought that would be really cool to collaborate, because our energies to collaborate with her. So in answer to your question, I can't tell you exactly, but I gave you guys a spoiler alert. If she says, cool, mom, I think she would, it's going to be fun.
That's so beautiful, because also with us going through our lives, like I don't have kids, I wanted kids, but now it's just like, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, I'm okay. But, if someone's always watching you and just know that your daughter is like coming into this energy with you, that is so cool. That's so beautiful. And I'm very excited for you. If you ever need people to come on, I would be more than happy to support you. I mean, who's to say that like I could be on your podcast, but who's to say I'm not, like I'm just a regular human being that likes talking about deep things with
You
people.
would definitely be up there. Look, I already had some list of people that I was going to like for each episode. So now you just added your name to that
That's
list.
awesome. I'd be more than happy to support you as just as you're supporting me today. I'm just so grateful. And girl, let me tell you something. When I was at Lions Den Live and I want to do this YouTube thing, I'm not a YouTube watcher. I just don't like, I don't do that, but I'm trying to tap in. Like, I have a microphone. Do I use it? No. I still can't figure it out. I think I have to put in headphones into the microphone, into the computer. I mean, it's very confusing. So again, I'm not too concerned with, if my audio sounds perfect, if like where I'm sitting right now is perfect. I've been trying new things in my house, like where does it look good? I added a light last night when I was talking to Nick Hoff. I was like, ooh, okay, maybe that will work a little bit better instead of talking in the basement and in front of like exercise machines. So it's like little things, but it's all about the message. And that's what all you got to know, D, is like, it's all about the message. So who cares where you start, because it's going to get better.
Yeah. No, your setup looks great. For me, I'm just sometimes stationary and sometimes I'm moving around, and then but I just realized that I just need to push the go button. But I want it to be fun, because I did my group for about 3 years, and the last 6 months or so, I'd already known that I kind of had outgrown it, but I didn't want to let it go because it was my baby. So I didn't want to box myself in with the podcast and like, oh, we're just going to talk about mental health, or we're just going to talk about relationships. No, assertive living, because that's just how my business is called Assert Yourself. That's how I do everything. And then we can talk about a variety of different things.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what, when I started, I was like, well, the whole point of us living on this earth is to be absolutely free. So that can go into anything, and that's why this YouTube channel is called Free Lady, free human, free man, free child, whatever you wanted to become, whatever I feel like talking about. And it's just been really cool to have guests on here that are adding value to my channel, and vice versa. And so I'm excited. I can't wait for your podcast. I love that Sean and Sachs have a podcast, because it's all about like who you feel connected with, that you actually really want to listen, because there's so much out there. But for any of you audience, like if you need help with the guidance of like, well, who do I start looking at? Please ask us. Please ask us. Dr. D's on Instagram. Of course, I'm on Instagram too. But reach out to us. Like, we'll get back to you. So but thank you so much for coming on here. And any last words of like what it means to you to be free?
To be able to be in Tampa instead of back in VA, hanging out, working, to be able to connect with, I have a uncle here I posted this a few weeks ago, who's 80, to come and see them, or just to do what I want when I want, and that doesn't just mean like travel. I love to travel, but like to be able to help people, to be able to create. Like one of the things I got, like in between sessions, I'm finishing up this blanket I'm crocheting for my son. Like just to totally be in the moment. I'm like, I have so many words, but it's just really to be in the moment. Like what I feel in that moment is freedom for me.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's what, this channel is all about, of me showing the world that I'm on that journey to be free, to be able to do whatever I want, but also to be able to do whatever I need to do to give back and help others. So that's so beautiful. And I did see the picture of your quilt. I was like, girl, it's so pretty. It's so
Yeah.
pretty. So, thank you again for coming on here and taking the time while you're on vacation. I hope that you enjoy your rest of the trip and you are continuing to stay in that moment and enjoy life. And so I feel honored that you're here. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other cool thing about this is like the connections, the connectivity. Everyone I talk to on here, I'm like, oh yeah, now they're like my real friend. Like I can reach out and you know who I am a little bit more, and I hope this this relationship, this friendship continues to grow. I really hope to see you at. I'm really excited for the women's event coming up with Lions Den Live. So I hope we all get to participate in that. That sounds like super cool, and just bringing us women together and growing together is so beautiful. So thanks for growing here on with me. And I just hope you have a most fabulous day.
All right, you too.
All right. Thank you, Dr. D. We'll be getting in touch soon.